Easy peasy genius. Okay, we see in today's Yom Yom an incredible thing. The Rebbe, in the name of the Rebbe Marash, so it's like, I don't know, 100 years ago, speaks about how women, when it really matters, are able to come up with rationale or even arguments in their defense of things that look really against them. If they're suspected in a court case or something, good morning. If they're suspected, they'll become geniuses instantly. That the greatest geniuses, to plume the depths of their svara, of their analysis, it requires the greatest minds, like of the geniuses of the Talmud, which are called Tanoim and Amoroim. So you could read the Yom Yom. It's for Tes Elul. Today's Tes Elul. Happy Tes Elul. You could read that, but I'm going to read you the context it appears in, and then I'm going to take you to an amazing another thing. Okay, right? In the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, about how you learn from everything you see and hear. And an interesting conversation between the Frierdiker Rebbe and his father, the Rebbe Rashab. He talks about a walk he went on with his father. His father is the Rebbe. He was the future Rebbe. These are great people. And he wants the secret to how you could learn from everything that you encounter in the world. And he's deferring. I want to read you the story inside, but like I said, stay tuned. That's some of the topics that I want to talk. It's going to be a bit lengthy, but I think we're starting it early today, aren't we? Maybe it's just because it's not Sunday, so it feels really early. Okay. So you got to understand the context of this. When it's said in times of Rebbe Marash, right, we're learning about how women come up with these incredible svaras, because the very fact that we're illustrating this with women is to show a great spectrum of accomplishment. It's more pronounced, this idea, the fact that comes women, because in those days women were not educated. Okay? The women would be involved with, I don't know, home life. It says, Lo lamdu nashim teira. Therefore, you wouldn't expect of them to come up with great intellectual opinions in Torah or just in general. Yet they're encountered in the Gemara when they have to discuss, different. What if the woman says such and such? They have women that actually came up with these svaras. These ideas that just they took genius to come up with. So how did this come about? What the idea? We're going to see in it. We'll just read through it. Okay. It says, Rabbi Shab says, one time when I went into the Chidus with his father, which was the Rebbe Marash, Shalti es Avi, I asked my father, Rebbe Marash, Al Inyan Prati Ba'aveda, Eich Efshar Le'agil Ezeh. He's asking a question about how does he arrive, how does he accomplish a certain aspect of his service of Hashem. V'yanani, and he answered me, Al Yidei Hispaininus Ba'makas Hadas. You want to achieve what's beyond you? You have a power that allows you to do that. And the Rebbe Marash is teaching his son, the Rebbe Rashab, what the key to that is. It's called, in Hebrew, Hispaininus Bahamakas Hadas. You have to be able to meditate with depths of das. Das doesn't mean knowledge, even though that's the way it's translated. Because knowledge is like information, and das is not information. Das means you connect to something. It means something to you. I speak about this a lot. Like, what does Mashiach mean to you? This is the question I asked for bringing that reference, I think, yesterday. About my son's birthday for bringing. I asked that question on the table, and I said what it meant to me. And then I went into this whole complicated Zen thing that I found a source for yesterday, which is beyond Zen. It's beyond everything. It's awesome. That you're already in the future, okay? It's like you see through the matrix that it's just a phantasma, and you are able to therefore overcome it and overpower it and like hack the system. So that also is our world, but our world's real. It's not just a computer phantasma. God creates a real world, but it's a world that's manipulated. It can be manipulated by its inhabitants, namely the Jewish people, because we're God's precious. We represent the Shekhinah in the world. So he wants the Shekhinah, the Matronissa, to have everything. So he gives you everything, and that's the future. And you got to live with that. Someone keeps texting me. You got to live with that in the present. But where does it come from? It comes from the past. It's the Ruach Elokim Marachefes al Pnei Hamayim. Right. The Spirit of God that hovered upon the water. Zu Ruach Mashiach. That's talking about the Spirit of Mashiach. That was there in the beginning, it's there at the end, and since it's there in the end, that's the ultimate point, the whole reason why God created the world, and you're a partner with God in creation, meaning the Maisa Breshis, actual act of creation you're a partner in. In fact, God consulted with you about it. That's the future, which is our present. Okay, so it's a whole big weave in time. So my friend Menachem Foyer asked me yesterday, I think it was yesterday. I'm going on a tangent here, I realize, but okay, I'm having fun. He asked me, how do you maintain two opposites at the same time? Right? The Star Shem L'Choil doesn't burn, he doesn't put out, he doesn't extinguish. The Star of Gavriel, which is fire. You got water and fire. When you're in front of the king, I learned a whole mimer on this, so I wanted to address this. Menachem Foyer, I think it was on Friday, he asked this actually. So I researched this topic. It was fascinating, and I want to say it inside for you one time because I really hope I get to that. It's really incredible. But it speaks about how the unity of opposites occurs in deference to something greater than them both. You have something that transcends the two opposites. It's always Tiferes. That's the essence that is expressed through Tiferes, through beauty. It's the balance, the harmony, the weave between the two opposites. So in time, you have a weave. You have, I'm going to be awake, I'm going to be tired. It's just part of the rhythm of life. It's the rhythms throughout the day. You have that. So you have the ups and downs, the Ratzah v'Shaiv. You run to God, you pull back because you're tired. You're tired, maybe spiritually, ethically. Okay. So make yourself healthy. Oh, so I was speaking about Menachem and his question. Okay, so how do you maintain opposites? You're supposed to emulate God. God is chesed and God is gvura. It speaks at length in Tanya about it. It's just beautiful, but it's way beyond the scope of today. But I just want to share a little bit of this idea. Because the way that you have Malach Nechol and Malach Gavriel, fire and water, together in the same room, is in the room of the palace of the king. When you're before the king, there's nothing else. And fire and water, you have the barad, which had fire within the hail. You have that coexisting. That you have power from that which transcends the two opposites, which is always Tiferes, which is a rooting in the essence of God. So when you approach the essence of God, all opposites are nullified. But the idea is, so they're at least a weave. They can coexist. But the idea is that it's possible from their bittul to that which is greater than, in this case, God. Okay, that's what we're talking about. But in any system, this is the way you unite the opposites. But the idea here, I want to explain what I always grew up with in philosophy, is this idea that before you can have the union of opposites, you have to then nullify both. First, you have to acknowledge one, and then you recognize you need the opposite to have it. We spoke about this in context of, was there Medrash? I can't remember. Just like last week. The opposites, the importance of opposites. So when you have one, you'll have the other. And if you want to have both at the same time, you have to both be nullified to something higher than it. The king nullifies to the king, that both the angels, the ministers of the king can get along in the presence of the king. So they have to nullify themselves. And once they nullify themselves and recognize that there's a higher purpose, which is the king that they nullify themselves to, then they know automatically how to weave and how to coexist. So they come back to life once after they're ceased to exist in a state of bittul. So ultimately, that is our whole process of healing. We're going to nullify ourselves to God completely. It might even result, chas v'shalom, in 120 years, and then, etc. You know, what happens then. But it doesn't have to happen that way, the Rebbe says. So it could be just a process of healing, and you could have your own resurrection of the dead while you're still alive. Why? Because it's anyways going to be that way for those who are not alive. It's going to be the same thing. They're going to be born with all their illnesses, with all their fight, with all the bags under my eyes. Okay? Those come with it. It's a one big package, and it all has to be healed. Everything has to be healed. We might not have time to take care of the superficial things because we have such more important things to deal with. But eventually, everything is going to be healed. The varicose veins on your whatever is going to be gone. I promise you. If we have time, okay? It's just going to be natural. There's two ways of healing, it says in one of the Yom Yoms. One is through focusing on the illness and like the area where it affects, and then just generally be more healthy, and that's going to spread itself out to all the other areas. It does. You lose weight, and you'll see that you're davening differently. They didn't put that. I had a list of like the 12 things that if you lose 50 pounds, what that's going to do for you. Didn't say that there, okay? But I could add that's the 13th. We don't. There's no 13th floor in the buildings. That's some. We just got rid of a number. How many floors are in your building? 22 floors. Oh, well, really, it's 21 because we don't have a 13th floor. That's really weird. Okay, Goyim. That's Goyish thinking. Every number is important. Don't skip a number. It's ridiculous. Okay. So the way to go beyond yourself fits in right where we're holding. Yeah, we're going to get healthy. So the way to get beyond yourself, you should type it now and know, because that's the beginning of this talk. You know, this is an important idea. Hisbaininus b'machas hadas. You have to connect with what you're doing. You want to go beyond? Get das. So I said it's not knowledge, not information. Das is meaningful interaction. Being present, mindfulness, whatever you want to call it. Being sensitive to your environment and the people around you. But this is that word now applying to hisbaininus, meditation. So you have to meditate in such a way that it's real to you. The Amarti says, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitch Rebbe, he answers his father, Halay kavod la'ameida hasagazu. Isn't it difficult to achieve that? Yanani, and he answered me, Im ha'inin negeya, if something matters. I mean, I told the story many times. When I came to the border originally, when I was moving to Toronto from New York, they said I can't go for various technical reasons, and I said I have to get over. I'm not staying here in Buffalo or Niagara Falls, wherever it was. And they let me go eventually when I just kept saying the same thing. I have to go. Anyway, so if it matters, but it's okay. Maybe here's not a good example because I didn't have any intellectual argument, okay, to say why I should be able to pass by. Here, this is about developing easy peasy genius. Okay, how is it possible? The key is through hisbaininus b'machas hadas. But here, watch this example, because the Frierdiker Rebbe challenges the Rebbe Rashab, says, who could do that? So he says, if something matters, as mavinim u'masigim b'chiteiv, then you can understand and comprehend really well. V'raya min ha'Torah, the proof is from the Torah. Bekama dinei nashim, and many laws pertaining to women. Maybe wives is how you no. V'tainai sehem sheyachelim litain, and all the arguments they could come up with. Midvarim bezeh, midabrim bezeh, tanoiva moroiva hagainim. This is the fodder of conversation for the Talmudic sages and the Gainim. Shekulam hayu baalei haskalah muflaga. They were incredible geniuses. V'ateiru he teres emes. And what are they geniuses? Not in like how to like fix a toenail. Well, that too. But they knew the Torah of truth. And I just wanted to say, one of the things, the beauties of Torah is it speaks to everybody. It resonates at all levels. Okay, these are geniuses in Torah, but they had personalities, and some aspects attracted certain ones. And Tanya mentions this, a few of their specialties, like I think Rabbi Yehuda always did Nezikin. I can't remember exactly. I think it was always civil law was his specialty. Everyone had their thing. So they express their personality through the Torah, so it resonates at all levels. So it's just that's the side point. And then the elu is not a woman who is not educated. It means because it says Beruria, for example, Rameir's wife was a genius. So it's not like they didn't have the capacity. We never said that anywhere. They just didn't do it. They focused on an area of life. They were specialized. Okay, just like the Tanaim specialized in their Masechta. They specialized in physical, bringing holiness into the physical. The dir b'tachtenim that God wants, that's their specialty. To bring more light and depth, more expressed. There's depth, obviously, in the women's approach, but expressed, articulated more through ideas, that's more the masculine contribution of intellect, or just the main area. What each focused on. So you have Sarah was the body, Avram was the soul. Who's going to say Sarah, the ruler of all humanity, being associated with the physicality of the world, is to be said to be denigrated by that statement? No, that's why Shema v'Keilah, that's why you listen to her voice. Garash Isha Azais. Avol ha'emes hu dekasher yini nageya. So when something matters, even those who are not big intellectuals come up with great arguments. They become genius, easy peasy genius. That's what they become. And the Rebbe has an amazing take on this. He goes on. Saram is that Tanava Meira, great Talmudic scholars, they had to use the most subtle aspects of their mind, and the depths of their rationale, until they came up with their ideas that are recorded in the Talmud. But a freed slave that had never been educated, since this is a matter that pertains to her very existence, I guess to save her life, maybe, in whatever case it's talking about, in like Talmudic, biblical law, without that much effort, and not having refined their brains and their minds, immediately they come up with this. It's not a process. They arrive at the end result. They're living in the future now. Back to the future. We're coming back to the future. We're taking the future back to us. Okay, there's that idea from Back to the Future. So it gets to that, okay? Because it says you got to learn from everything. And then we have another one of these lovely conversations where the son asks the father, the Rebbe, how am I supposed to understand this? They challenged them. They didn't just take things as they were said. Doesn't make sense to you? Understand it. Then you're in a gate. Then it matters to you. And mitzvah nefesh, I think it says in what I'm going to tell you next. Okay, so that's the first source. And now I'm going to risk spilling water all over myself. That's what happens to me when I use this silly thing. Okay, so there the point is, an uneducated person from the whole, never been educated, a freed slave. Maybe she didn't even speak the language. Well, then I guess she could have to do it in her language and have an interpreter. But because it has to be understood by the judges, this is talking about a case where a freed slave tries to save her life because she was caught doing something, maybe. So when she's able, she doesn't have to think about it. She doesn't have the brain to do that. Your brain has to be like the spaghetti of your brain has to be developed through usage, like the muscles that, you want to have muscles, you pump iron. You want to have, like a lot of spaghetti, like a lot of, I think the more wiggles you have in your brain, like the higher your IQ, right? That's how Einstein is like 156, because that's how many squiggles of spaghetti. I know someone who says he has one less squiggle of spaghetti, I'm not joking, in his IQ than Einstein. I know, okay, the guy, he's an awesome person actually, so I believe it. Okay, that's Holy Sefer number 1, but it's actually volume 2. Now I'm going to go to volume 1 of that Holy Sefer. And then now it's going to get more fun. And I still have a little bit of time, so let's see if we can do this. It's like 2.5 pages. Okay. Just like a little, maybe just a, small advertisement for, I don't know, being a bad person. Someone's got to watch like this far before they saw this horrible thing. Okay. Okay, let's just jump into this. It starts with a Hayom Yom of Tessiyar. Good morning. Good morning. It says, Mareinu HaBaal Shem Tov Amar. The holy Baal Shem Tov taught. Okay, he's the founder of Chassidus. Everybody just defers to him in terms of that is the source of all the well springs of Mashiach. Kol davar davar asher ha'adam raya shemea. Every single thing that you see or hear, hu hayra hanaga b'avedas Hashem. This is supposed to bring you closer to God. Thank you. You do too. For someone that, takes one to know one. Someone must be looking for their dog as they're whistling. So everything oh my goodness, we are challenged now. Why did I say such a crazy thing? We have to learn from it. Kol davar davar asher adam raya shemeh. Every single thing that a person sees or hears, hu hayra hanaga b'avedas Hashem. This is an instruction for you to get closer to God, to have a more intimate, meaningful relationship with God. That's the whole concept of Aveda, to serve, to get to know God. To understand and really appreciate every single pathway, Michol Derech, from every pathway that you take, B'Avedas Hashem. How Michol Derech B'Avedas Hashem. From every path in Avodas Hashem. From every path you go on in your life, you have to use that as an instruction in how you serve God. Because you have a personal relationship with God. The bird tweets a little different for you than the sage over there. So he doesn't get you 100%. So at times you're going to have insight that's beyond his, and he's going to have to plume the depths of your intellect, even if you don't have the spaghetti brain. Or the whatever, fusilli brain. Probably better, more intelligent. Pasta. That's the more intelligent pasta. Fusilli. Can you make that arrabbiata? Is that how you say it? Really hot, okay? Anyways, that's hot is going to come up. Okay, here is a letter from, I don't know, the Rebbe Rashab, I think. No, the Rebbe, Friedrich Rebbe speaking about the Rebbe Rashab, maybe. Okay, this is the source for this whole thing that we just read. This is the original context. We had some other context there. Okay, this is the original thing. It's an interesting story. It's a bit hard to read. Hayemer isi davar asher mamash afshar lakachas dugma v'havana sinyan b'inyan avedim uvorim b'dach v'en hanesi me'aid. Today I saw something that literally you could take as an example for things that I have learned in my Avodas Hashem. Things that I encountered in learning Chassidus. And I took great pleasure in this. I think this is Rebbe Rayat's writing. But regarding the concept of Avasailim, so he explains what it was. I guess he had an example in his life that it illuminated this teaching. So he's saying something that he learned. There's a concept called Avas Eilam. And it explains in Chassidus, in the philosophy of Chassidus, this is the type of love, specifically, that you get from your experience in the matrix of your life. Whatever the computer program designed for you, that particular conscious experience is designed for you to achieve this form of love called Avas Eilam. The love of the world, or the world love, or love that's derived from the world, more correctly. It says in Tanya that the intent here is that contemplating the idea of that God is your life source, that if you're like tired and you, God, give me sleep, I want to get my energy back, that life source is God. If you recognize that, Madeh Ani Lefanecha, you say immediately. Before the Ani, there's a Madeh, there's a Maida, there's this deference, this submission, before you recognize yourself. That's the contemplation that God's our life. So when we talk about how you relate to your experience, the world, to make an intimate experience of God through it, it's always about vitality, life. By recognizing that the world is the source of your life, which is God. So the energy you get from the world, that is God. Or that's how you relate to God. That's an example. Here the Frierdiker Rebbe is explaining how you derive from that the understanding of this concept in Chassidus, that it's to be taken from the world. It's taken from the things that you identify in your world as giving you life, health in general. Just like a person loves his own life, and everything he does is for the sake to enhance his life. So too, when he contemplates in his head that godliness is the life of his soul, so it's a very small deviation from the original. One's the life of your body, which we spoke about, which is Sari Menu, and one is the life of your soul, which is Avram, the intellectual side. And it's going to be all related, because to achieve this, it's through intellectual powers. You're going to see that's going to emerge. But yes, there's a way even around that. You're going to dance through life. We spoke about with the Sula, that's the main dance, the Machel, Tzadikim, Lasidlavle, the dance is going to be for the righteous in the world to come. It's specifically a dance for the virgin, meaning someone who's not trapped by the mentality, the masculine mentality. Once they've already connected with a man, they're not Basula anymore, and therefore they have some influence, I guess, from a man. They've entered the philosophical world. They're not able to dance through life in the same way. So by doing that, by really being the opposite in a way, by being really there in the world, by recognizing that your life is at stake, like the Shifra Charufa we spoke about before, this maid servant trying to save her life. She's accused of something, and she comes up with an ingenious idea. She didn't have to think about it. She doesn't even have the brain power for it. She just came up with it because it pertains to her very life. Here's the same advice. You see God as your source of life. Then you're going to love him. Just like you love the pizza when you're hungry. It's the source of your life, right? That's the way you're going to love God, but more than just the physical. You're going to eat that pizza and say, wow, I know this is coming from God. And even in this pizza, this very grub thing, because it's like cheese and oil and fat and like fun. And check this out. He loves Hashem like the love of his life, the love of life itself. Okay, have you ever told anyone that? You're the love of my life. This is what it means. And this is how you have to love God. Because God's not just figuratively the love of your life. He literally is your source of life. These are awesome words. It's love of godliness. So now we went beyond just God. God is like the essence. When we speak of God, then we don't exist. So when we talk about godliness, it's God as we recognize ourselves approaching the infinite, but it's always a process. You're never really there. That's when we speak about God's essence. You don't really exist. You're just the thought in God's. You're the shine in your Father's eye before you ever conceived. But yeah, you're that shine, because that's the ultimate. That's what God wants to make realized in the physical world, in the matrix of the world also. Not in the sense that it's a fabrication. It's a divine fabrication of what God wants. Maisa Breshis, it's a real thing. The world exists, okay? For all those Zen people out there. Or worse. The world exists. But, Einon Movade, it doesn't exist. Okay. We'll talk about that another time. So the love of godliness that's derived from the love of physical life. So the Frierdiker Rebbe got a lot of pleasure from this. Okay, so it's not just me. I get pleasure from these terrorists. I do. I think it's awesome. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I look for the dark phoenix in the tarot. Why? Because it's smexy. Why not? I should learn something that interests you more. Why would I do that? I'm all right. I passed grade school. I graduated the system. Yeah, so now I can learn what I want. You should always feel like you learn what you want. I don't know how a Bacher relates to it. I would make my yeshiva different. And I'd have to figure out a way to reconcile that with all the advice that's obviously well-founded. But I would find a way. It would be Nagea. It would be relevant to me. And then even if I don't have the proper Fazili brain, I'd be able to, get the right idea. Get the right idea. Go into the mikveh and say, okay, I know I'm not the Fazili brain. Just put your ideas in my head. Let them be pure. Let them come from a good place. Okay, let's maybe skip. Oh, it's so lovely. I think I have to continue staying inside. There's still a lot left here. So someone just tell a joker in the meanwhile. Avas Eilam hi binyan of the bedach. This is a general principle that develops through Chassidus. This whole concept of Avas Eilam. And l'kamin yane aveda. This applies to many areas. This concept is a foundational principle that many other principles in Chassidus depend upon. This idea that your experience, things that are important to you, the things that you identify as your life, your physical basarim, achayna basarim, things that you really relate to. Okay, maybe you're an intellectual, so that's what it's talking about here. It's talking about the very physical aspect of a person that recognizes he's got to eat a pizza. That's the only the restaurant that's left open past 7 o'clock in Toronto is the pizza place. So everything sparks out of this concept, okay? But it's actually the principle underlying this Avas Eilam, the idea that from our physical experience, from my flesh, I behold God. I see God through my flesh. This is this idea. And now we're saying that all the examples, that becomes the whole I don't know what the word is. The canon, the text, the literature is the word I'm looking for, of Chassidus, is just filled with allegories, analogies, examples of things, in order for us to be able to relate to things that are very aloof, very lofty, rather. Everything that we encounter from all aspects, the emotional world, the physical world, all become examples for us to understand God. The Baal Shem Tov teaches. He says, you have to learn from everything. Okay, here's the context of that. Yom we said that everything is meant to teach you and become something, a path in Avodas Hashem. So that's the context that this comes in. It's a very intellectual idea, but then this very nice aphorism just emerges from there, that you have to learn from everything. And then it goes on to tell a story whereby the Rebbe Rishab was talking to, I think the Rebbe Marash, if I got the whole thing right, because he says, when we were in Rustval, okay, I don't know the name of the place. I think it's talking about the Marash. I was walking one of the strolls that I went on with my father. I asked him the meaning of this teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. This is a beautiful conversation. That's my father said yes. This is not a simple alphabet. The aleph base, the dai kasha might be a really difficult aleph base. Remember what the question is? It says you want to understand what does the Baal Shem Tov mean by this, that everything we encounter, everything we see and hear, specifically, as we'll see later, is a teaching in our pathway of life, how we serve God. That's a difficult alphabet. That should be one of the headers. That's a beautiful line. To be able to take everything out, something out of everything you encounter in your life, in a way, as a pathway to serve God. I was like, wait, I went on to think, I just thought about it. I was respectful, says the Rabbi Rishab, I believe. K'muvan loy her havti oiz lachzer lishel eich be'ezeif v'yechem l'slam et aleph be'zeh. I didn't have the audacity to repeat my question, to say, how can we learn this aleph base? It was 9 o'clock at night. They were in no rush for their stroll. They walked slowly. Sadva Shma, the name of the Rechav was Sadava. And Nashim Baimat, there weren't so many people that could Shah after an hour kala. After a short while, his schil Bushas Admor of Kodesh Daber Laimar about Shem Mas Ledim Ma'imar. Shemash Yehudi Shmei what a Jew sees or hears, he answered him. So he just volunteered this further information. He must have seen that his son was perturbed by his dismissing his very difficult question, a very difficult alphabet. Zeh ras derech b'avodas Hashem kach zeh be'emes. The truth is, everything you hear or see, this is truly a lesson to how to serve God. That was his answer. It goes on. Since it was late night, so we went home. He went on there on a second stroll. These people enjoyed life. They weren't just about doing whatever. Everything's important. They enjoyed life too. They made times for a walk. These are important people, and they took times for a walk. So he gave a lengthy explanation about it. But the point, I'm going to paraphrase my father, says the Rebbe Rishab, I believe, that when something is relevant, you automatically know the way things work in the alphabet of this difficult aleph beta. It's Chinese. You learn Chinese if you need to read Chinese. You learn Chinese. That's what he's saying. You learn a difficult language. The aleph base. That's what it's talking about. It's like almost literally. Simas levli nanaveda v'ratzin pnimi lezeh. Navim lechaven el ha'emes. If you care and have a real desire, an inner desire to accomplish this, to serve God, to have a relationship with God, a meaningful relationship with God, navim lechaven el ha'emes. You're brought to know the true path. That was his lengthy explanation, how you literally have to learn from everything you encounter in your world. You have to pay attention and care. You have to want to have a perfect relationship with Hashem, so much so that everything you see and hear is an extension of that relationship. And you, if you really care, that will happen. So here it's not necessarily, we spoke about to meditate with great das, meaning, to really care about what you're thinking about, to realize that the truth is real. It's not just a deviation of a reality. It's in the false matrix. It's God's world you're in. So the whole purpose of the world is actually to realize that the matrix is not controlled by someone that you don't trust. It's God that's guiding you. And everything you encounter, He's taking you by the hand. You just have to take it to heart. Okay, goes on. Oh, the Frierdiker Rebbe now is talking that his father, the Rebbe Shab, told him that he went to the Rebbe Marash one time. He asked something specific in the Veda, how I can accomplish this, and then he said this whole thing about his Bainis and Makas Adas. And he says it's very difficult, and he answers, if you really care, even people that have a Chalushi Adas, people that don't have a very developed mind, they come up with it. And if it really means something to you, then you're going to understand. Okay, I'm just going a bit quicker through this part. And now, this is from the Rebbe. I'm pretty sure. Okay, it's a lot of Rosh Hashanah and stuff. It's a bit hard to know who they're referring to all the time. B'frat al Piteres Baal Shem Tov. According to the teaching of Baal Shem Tov, Sher Kol Mal She'adam Re'eh V'Kol Mal She'adam Shemeh Re'ezeh Hayra Min HaShemayim Avedis Shem Yisparach. Everything you encounter is an instruction from heaven in your service of Hashem. May you be blessed. V'tzarich L'Yes Chaim Adaitid the Rebbe. You have to do what it says that after 40 years you approach the knowledge of your master. Who's that referring to here? Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the Almighty. Torah doesn't say 40 years. But you have to approach the knowledge of God, the knowledge of your master, of God, God's perspective. You have to have Bahirazu in this teaching. You have to really understand this as it's meant to be understood. Ubahar Rishena, I guess this is a written thing. Teres Baal Shem Tov, okay? Rabbeinu Mitzayin Rambam. Rabbeinu, I guess, refers to the Rebbe. I don't know. No. He's talking about, could he be talking about the Baal Shem Tov? I don't know. Oh no, he wrote sources. The Rebbe wrote just a few sources. And then the commentary in this book is developing it. It says, Mitzayin Rambam. So the Rebbe is referring here to Rambam. It says in Rambam, when it's talking about the laws of fasting, that when he encounters things in certain instances for example, a city or nation has to fast. I don't know, a plague, whatever, it happens. You can't say that this was happenstance. It's just a fluke thing. You have to say the hurricane. This is meant to teach me something. So here's some of the sources for this idea. Rambam's laws of fasting. It says you're not allowed to say that something's happenstance. The whole purpose of this, when there's a calamity, lo aleinu, there's something there's an unpleasant fear of something happening, or if it's happening, it's in order for a person to do tshuva. Milchos brachos, another source the Rebbe cites. I guess this is just a written note of the Rebbe's sources. The laws of brachas mevar Rambam. There, the Rambam explains Shatam lekach, the laws of saying blessings. The reason for this, that the sages instituted these blessings, is kedei lizkar sebeir tamid, in order that you should constantly remember your Creator. Shekol davar sha'adam raya, that everything someone sees, tzarich lahavi aisei lizchiras habeira, must bring the person to remember his Creator. But say perak yud sham Kosav HaRambam, and the end of chapter 10 there, Rambam writes, the more you do this, the more praiseworthy you are. So this should be something that everything you see should remind you of God. Then you have a really rich, robust, incredible, intimate relationship with God in all aspects of your life. Then he writes more, it says in the Dharam, so he specifies here, that when one sees or hears, it's reversed order what it said before. See or hear, here he gives sources to summa chashiv k'mes. A blind person is seen to be as dead. He's considered like he's dead. If someone deafens another person, he has to give him full damages. And then he cites a Lakutei Torah. Okay, so I just want to go over a couple points here. It says, okay, this is very nigla-dick, and it's the end of the shir. So why am I going to nigla at the end of the shir? Let's just maybe I'll skip it. Maybe I'll go to Lakutei Torah sites. Ma'id b'Lakutei Torah sham nispar shatainug sheyesh la'adam meri'ah mishmiya hu shalei berach l'tainug sheyesh le'mishar avarav v'chushav. It says in Lakutei Torah, the Alter Rebbe teaches that pleasure that a person has from seeing and hearing. Why would he specify these two things? It could have said the things that we encounter tactilely, the things that we smell in the world. That's what we should learn from. Why does it specify these two senses, sight and hearing? Why those two? Because these have a special status in halacha, that if a person loses these capacities, lo aleinu, then the Torah is very sympathetic, and there's damages that are more expensive to compensate for the loss of the lo aleinu. They're so important. The Gemara says a blind person's singing like dead. And a person that doesn't hear, ain't a roy l'klum. Kalosh and Rashi says the person's not fit to do anything if he can't hear. Therefore, you have to pay full damages. Okay, so I'm bringing in some of this nigla. I'm just saying that side of it. So in the Chassidus explains, not only are these things important to define you as a productive person, therefore the compensation varies according to whether these senses are intact or damaged or lost, God forbid. But it has to do with not just your needs in the world, but pleasure. Remember, we distinguished it that the other day, which besides a field where you make produce is associated with your needs, what you eat, what you consume in the world, all the things you encounter to provide needs. But needs also include pleasure. And pleasure is seen in the image of a kerem, as a vineyard. A vineyard where there's grapes that are intoxicating and bring about joy. That's why we drink it for bringings, to bring joy amongst people that otherwise have so many differences. So this focuses, they don't get into like a philosophical debate so much. They just enjoy each other's company more. So pleasure is also important. It's one of those things that God wants to provide us with in order to serve Him better. So that's what's leading up to the times of Mashiach, is going to be the revelation of that. So God's going to provide us not only with our needs, but also pleasure and health, I say, because health is the premise for pleasure. Can't have pleasure unless you overcome the threshold of health first. That the bare minimum to say, okay, now I'm ready for a little bit of celebrating life. So pleasure is important to Chassidus. It's very important if you want to see it as an analogy for God. I've brought teachings that said that people would know that if they're attracted to something, all the avodah is to see the source of that, and how it's rooted in God, and how much more so if it's drawn into a physical finite thing, the very source of that, how precious that is, what that says about our Creator. So the idea of pleasure is important even from that perspective, that it allows us to encounter some concept of good, things that we are drawn to, attracted to. The idea of beauty itself is meant for us to appreciate God. The otherworldly, it's supposed to bring us to the gems and things, beautiful things. William Blake, I think, said that it's supposed to give you some hint of the otherworldly. Okay, do I have to quote, if doors of perception are cleansed, then we will see things as they are, infinite. You'll see, if you could see purely, if you have true vision, you'll see things that there's infinity in your enjoyment of, like a shmaka apple. There's infinity in that. My mind doesn't speak about it, how chesed is expressed through sweetness, different levels, sweet music, sweet terror, sweet prophecy, sweet aruch, sweet, I don't know, I don't know, how high do you want to go? So, tainug that a person has, a pleasure that a person has from seeing and hearing, that's what makes these senses specified. If you think smelling good scents is the best pleasure, it's not as prominent in the human being. That's why the Baal Shem Tov taught these two specific senses, specifying them. Obviously, it's all of them, but why these two? Because you're supposed to know that the most pronounced things are the things that you could get, the most obvious lessons from God, things that matter to you. Whatever you get pleasure from is important. That's where you're going to develop the most pronounced teachings and lessons about God, not like, I don't know, a random number you see on a boat, because you're supposed to learn from that too, but it's just, when it's your negeya, the whole idea here, it's associated with this idea of really caring about something. If you really care, sure, please introduce your observation. I'm getting, I'm almost past my pay grade of this length of the share. Or you're just saying the word observation, you observe things in there. Here it says, it's suggesting that those things that we take pleasure in, those images that resonate, those ideas that speak to us, the things that we associate with pleasure, things that are really pronounced, that's what the Baal Shem Tov's teaching us in the core. That those areas will make the most marked lesson on your life. Of course, the flip side's true. If you want to run away from pain, that's real. We always emphasize running towards the light. Hashem's a consuming fire, but everyone's drawn to the light. Why are they drawn to the light? So people, why are they not afraid of the light? Because it comes with a lantern carrier that's saying, don't be afraid. It's God that's the light. We are so fearful. We have so much anxiety. We don't want to celebrate our existence, which is our experience of God. People think that the word has so many negative associations through historical events or whatever, or false portrayals of what religion is. Therefore, they don't like the word God, so they just use a different language. So, I don't know, if that makes you happy, then just translate everything. Every time I say God, then just say, I don't know, what's meaningful to you. You're so afraid of a word, the 3-letter word. It's not a 4-letter word, which is, I don't know, doubt is probably a 4-letter word. I doubt it. Boker Tov. Have a marvelous day. Marvelous. You look marvelous. What is Billy Crystal, how he says that? Isn't that cute? So I'm not ashamed as a Baal Tshuva to have all these ridiculous things in my head. Okay? Okay, I saw something the other day. I was driving behind a bus, and it had a huge banner there about adult toys. And I had a bus full of kids, and they could not help but read this thing. They don't even know what it's talking about. Please God, they're only 13 and below. 10-year-olds probably in there. I don't know. No, 12 years old. I hope they don't know what that means. It's not I think it's a stupid way to describe it. Come up with a better word than that to make kids, and then don't put it like in a city where there's kids. It's ridiculous. There's nothing that's, you want to just, kids shouldn't be kids. They shouldn't have that. It's horrible. People who suffer like that, it's a trauma. You have to regain that. I mean, you do too. I do too. We all have to regain the inner child, right? Can I borrow those funny terms? We have to reawaken the inner child. But there's people with trauma, and they have a difficult time, and they have to do this in order for them to be able to reach that threshold of health before they get a pleasurable, positive experience in life. So you can't introduce cynicism. I think every time you punch someone in the shoulder is not good. People don't understand. Al pi halacha, you're not allowed to kid around and say, you're an idiot. You can't do that. Why? Someone might believe it. He means it. Speak kindly to each other. You don't have to punch everyone in the shoulder. I could hug a guy. I could hug him. I learned this from my younger brother. We never hugged each other in my family. That was a weird way we grew up. We didn't do that. And he decided one day he's going to start hugging me. And I thought I would have never done that. I'm like, that's how cold that in that tactile sense that I was. I'm not, people did so. Y. Jacobson gave a whole shir on giving someone a hug. as an educator, I guess that was part of the way that you would educate a child, is just by hugging them, and it wasn't seen as weird. I mean, of course, there's horrible stories that make it impossible to be normal in the world, but let's recognize what normal, like in Gan Eden. Are you gonna hug a guy? Of course you are. Ridiculous. David and Jonathan didn't hug before they left. It doesn't have to be a weird thing. It doesn't have to be a fascination either, obviously. It's just a normal thing to do. We gotta find health in every area, people. So what was it? Easy peasy genius? You don't have to be a genius to be guided on the right path. You just have to care. And your way will be guided. Here's one explaining us how to do it. Okay, so take that with you. You have to contemplate what the meaningful experiences in your life, what you see and hear, the things that give you pleasure, things that represent those things that would take away your pleasure. The whole spectrum obviously is hinted there, but the more pronounced ones are going to be more powerful lessons in your life. So you should take that as God teaching you a lesson. There's a reason why you hurt. It means you're healthy. There's a reason why you get pleasure from something. So find out what's driving it. Find out what's driving it, and find that in the Torah. Find it in the Torah, and find out how God wants you to use that concept in this world. How is it to be expressed in a proper way? Be proud of everything you do. Everything you do, you have to be proud of. Everything. There's no hiding. Okay, you're not gonna say for the next 10 minutes, I'm not gonna be proud of myself. Be proud of every single decision you make every moment. Okay? That's what I want to leave you with today. Good show.